So you sometimes feel inadequate, sometimes feel like you're not enough. I do sometimes. Well, the good news is sometimes it helps me to talk to a friend. Sometimes it talks me to talk to an expert. And sometimes I'm really lucky that one of those experts is a friend. So Jessica Pettitt is with me today. She's got her master's in education. She's a certified speaking professional. And get this, 15 years of diversity training, 15 more than 15 years of diversity training, but she pulls this diversity training from stand up because she's funny. She's going to make us laugh today. Haha, yeah, laugh a lot. No, but really though, Jess helps us move from abstract fears to actionable habits that lead teams to actually want to work together. And she's got an awesome book that I love called Good Enough Now that she's going to hold up and show us because I'm lame and I couldn't find my copy today because I actually have 3 copies. I love this book so much.
I have 2 copies.
2 copies. So you've got, you're double 2 fists in the Good Enough Now, which is fun. And unfortunately, I don't have a copy, but just know, folks, it's a fabulous book. And even more importantly, Jessica is fantastic. So Jess, what's up? Glad you're here.
Yeah, I am too. I'm very excited. It's cool to be able to connect professionally with someone I consider such a good friend. So, hi.
Hi. So cool. So first question is, why do you live where you live in Humboldt County, California? Because you fly all over the darn place, and
It's true.
And it's challenging to get out. So talk to us about why you picked to live where you live.
So I live 6 hours north of San Francisco, about 47 miles from the Oregon border on a cliff. That's the ocean right there. And I am not an outdoors person. The redwoods are pretty. I have a calendar with pictures of the redwoods in them. And I am not a nature girl, and I don't even like the beach. Why do I live here? I fell in love.
You fell in love.
I fell in love. My partner is a professor at the university here. He teaches philosophy and environmental ethics. And this is like the Mecca perfect place for him to live. And my Mecca perfect place is kind of 4C on United. So as long as I have an airport, it's fine.
Awesome. So 4C on United. So do you get dragged off many planes?
Dragged off?
Yeah, because it's United, right? Isn't that what they do?
Oh, gotcha. United jokes. I'm a little rusty.
That's a bad joke. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. United, we love you. I'm just
okay.
joking.
I have not been mistreated on a flight, nor has my luggage. And now I should knock on something. I'm relatively lucky, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think, truth be told, I think we're all lucky to a certain extent. That's true. Right? Sometimes the luck is bad luck. Sometimes the luck is good luck. But yeah, it is all luck.
I also think that it is a true algorithm, right? That people don't post. I had a completely uneventful flight today. I had a meal at a restaurant and it was exactly what I wanted and nothing significant happened. That doesn't really get posted very much. So
well, then I'm looking. No, I don't see any of those posts that things are normal. So why is that, Jess?
I think that we really like the attention and the fanciness that comes with either supporting someone because something extraordinary has happened or getting support because something extraordinary has happened. And so we begin to think that that's everyone, when in reality, it is the skewed ends of a wide spectrum of experiences where most people who are engaging in whatever that is are having a fairly typical experience. And then we always forget about the people who actually have no idea what you're talking about, nor do they care. They also don't post.
Yeah. So
like
most people. I mean, frankly, right, if we talk about airplane woes, I know people that have never been on an airplane.
Mm-hmm.
They have no idea what we're talking about. Like, hey, United joke, haha, I don't get it. That's not real funny. And so I think that's kind of part of the reason why I do the podcast is hopefully to expose people to different things and maybe to practice my bad jokes before I bomb in front of a live studio audience. But the truth, yeah, go.
What's exciting though is that even though we're talking about like Yelp reviews or something like that, and we might be talking to people who don't even have the internet, right? That what's interesting is that this is the exact same paradigm that goes to the difficult topics that I often talk about. So there are very polarizing things. I can mention many of them. And what the truth is that these people are just as fanatically opinionated as these people are fanatically opinionated. And we forget these people don't care or have no opinion. And being fanatic is not a really good recruitment tool.
Right? Yeah. Well, it is a recruitment tool for people that are just like you.
But that's not recruitment. You've already picked a team. What that is community building. Then we get back to that extraordinary support thing. Ooh. So it's like a dog whistle for people who are just like you. That's not recruitment. That's reinforcement that you have other people who think just as weirdly as you do. That's not community. That's not it.
That's so interesting that you say that. But now that you say it, it makes so much sense. And but so many people, though, confuse that, Jess. I think a lot of people confuse that, right? They think recruiting is, oh, well, I added more to my team. Well, adding more people that believe exactly what you do, to your point, that's community building, or that's almost like enlistment, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think, like, let's take the last presidential election as an example, right? Most people who are eligible to vote didn't vote. Of the people who are eligible to vote who did vote, which is not most people, but of the people who were eligible and actually registered and actually did vote, most of those people voted for whoever they voted for because they were not somebody else. They didn't vote for someone because they believed 100% of everything they stand for. They voted for it because they weren't the other. So now we have this like culture that we're not allowed to talk about politics because it's too polarizing, when in reality, the vast majority of people have something in common. Why on earth would we not talk about that?
Well, okay, let's talk about that, because I think that's interesting, because I choose not to talk about politics on social media because it is not because of the normal people in the middle. It is because of the extremists on the sides that are often strangers. What happens is, right, there's some stupid bot, some algorithm somewhere that people pick up, either that or some trigger flips in the back of their head and hits them upside the head that says, hey, somebody posted about politics and I don't agree with it, so therefore I'm going to be a butt wipe. And I got to tell you, I don't have time for butt wipes. I'm happy to talk one-on-one with anybody about anything, any freaking day. I'm even happy to get in front of, I can talk in a way where people aren't going to filet mignon me. But it's not because I don't want my views challenged. I'm happy to have my views challenged. I just don't want to waste time on people that are never going to have their opinion changed.
Right. But look, we did it again. So because of social media is supposed to be providing a place for us to build communities and make connections. So one, it doesn't, because what it does is we have an algorithm that creates an echo chamber that's just reinforcements. And then when our reinforcements are challenged, then we're like, oh, back away. And then we apply that to real life living human beings. So this thing that was supposed to help actually has hurt this, and we don't even necessarily take responsibility for that. I would talk to any living human being about just about anything until I don't want to, because you're not entitled to a conversation with me. Now take that and put that into your social media algorithms. Instead of passive aggressively unfollowing people, why don't you actually have a conversation with Uncle Joe? And then these people who are not even your friends, using air quotes, or your connections who jump all over your page, like, what? That's your hobby, right? If they're even real, and I'm not technological to even know if they're all real, but there have been very interesting pieces where I think social media is really challenged in that, like, my brother, who has very different views and lived experience as an adult than I do, he'll post something on my Facebook page. He's not even on Facebook anymore because of these things, but he would post something on my Facebook page, and my friends, my echo chamber, would jump all over him. And then I'm asleep or on a plane or on a stage. So then I would like notice and be like, whoa, 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 back off, everyone. That's my brother. And they're like, are you standing up for someone who believes in this? And I'm like, I have to. He knew me before I had braces, right? Because the real relationships and the real community don't align with the echo chamber that is online.
Wow.
I'm teaching you about social media. Someone write this down.
Well, it's fascinating. I think it's important that we talk about this stuff. Yeah, you can mark this down. We got 10/5/2018, 11:46 Pacific, 2:46 p.m. Tampa time. Jessica is teaching Phil Gerbishek about social media, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I think you're on the money with a lot of this, Jess.
Yeah.
So,
I am, for those that don't have the context, Phil is the person who, whenever I do post something to social media, how does this work? Phil's like, I'm in your cell phone. Like, just call me. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This all true statement. So Jess, so let's talk about about good enough now, because we can talk politics all day and what that means, and
how fun would that be? Let's do it. No, you probably don't want to do that.
I don't. I really don't.
All right.
But anytime, yeah, we can go sip some sparkling water and talk about politics sometime. But let's talk about instead something even less fun than that, and that is feeling inadequate.
Speaking of politics, right. Yes. Yeah. When inadequate, what makes you feel more adequate than giant billboards with your face all over them saying you are about change?
Yeah. Right? So let's Yeah, so good enough now.
Yes.
Talk to me about this, Jess. So how did this even come about? Because knowing you like I do, I have to say, in some ways it came totally out of nowhere, and in some ways it was exactly what I expected you to do. So tell people about what the genesis of Good Enough Now was.
Sure. Well, I think you actually probably named it perfectly. So I am a high-functioning perfectionist who is super anal retentive and refuses to try new things unless I know I can make 100% A+ at them, which means I can live a very small world. I'm answering your question, I promise, but a great example of this is the Twitters and the LinkedIn. Phil, you know this, but your listeners may not, but you are responsible for me even having an account because I was helping you with one of your many fantastic resources and books. And in order to make sure the directions made sense, you needed someone who didn't have an account and possibly didn't even want an account to figure out how to log in and start up an account. So I was only helping you. And now look at me, social media giant. Not. But what is interesting, and I'm segueing this to being inadequate, is that I didn't know how to use or how to harness, I guess is the right word, the concept of followers. I don't like the word tribe because I think it's misappropriated, but like people who have drank your Kool-Aid and are following you to the moon. I didn't know how to harness them either to make money or to improve my own message, because I thought it was weird that they had bad choices to follow me in the first place, or they sneezed and like clicked on a button. I hadn't really understood that the information that I was saying was making an impact on someone else's life to the point that they wanted to follow me to find out what else I was going to say, right? When that became clear, that was a level of responsibility that I also felt completely inadequate for, because I was like, oh, no, make better choices. Until 15 years into this, I realized that I was waiting for someone else to build the things, say the things, do the things, because the things that already exist weren't filling a void that I was noticing. And so Hopi prophecy is we are the ones we have been waiting for. The reality is that's terrifying. I'm the one I've been waiting for, because I am a mess. That cannot be good news. It's probably not like the best news, but if I really am the one that I've been waiting for and I'm waiting until I somehow get better, then whatever it is I've been waiting on me for isn't getting done. So I took 2 words in my own business creation, my own personal creation, development, whatever, 2 words that were like instantaneous eye rolls for me, and I dismantled them. And that is possibility and trying. So if there's always a possibility, like the stupid positive dragonfly butterfly people, there's always a possibility. You should just try, right? Like, Do you know how hard this is? I'm tired. No. So I turned possibility into what if there is a possibility that there is a possibility? So I didn't have to get a dragonfly tattoo, and I can wrap my brain around that. Okay. There's a possibility of a possibility. And then same thing goes with trying. I didn't want to try unless I knew I could be successful, which is stupid because that's not called trying, that's called doing. So what if I tried to try? And between those two things, I did not cure my perfectionism, but I certainly understood that being inadequate is a stage in getting good at something.
Ooh, that's it. So that's so interesting because I got to tell you, I am like you in the fact that if I can't,
In every way.
oh yeah, we're twins. People will notice that if you're watching the video, folks, you can see my twin sister, Jennifer Pettigrew here. She's here with us today, and no, but truly though, I struggle with that too because I like to be really good at stuff. I don't like to do things that I suck at. Tomorrow, I am stretching my comfort zone. I'm going to Top Golf. I am not a golfer. I'm the opposite of a golfer. Golfing is a gentleman's game, and not that I'm not a gentleman, but I don't have the patience
Mhm.
to hit a ball well because it takes more than one swing. You have to practice it. So that has held me back in so many ways. I can't even tell you, but the trying to try and the possibility of that often, the kind of reverse Yoda there, that's enough.
Yeah,
That's a big
exactly.
step, right?
I quit painting. Primarily, I was an art major, and primarily oils are what killed my painting life because oil takes forever to dry. So you can actually never be done. And one of the greatest lessons, I think, from painting is the artist dictates when you're done. The critic adds what you should have done, but the critic didn't paint it.
Well, hold on. Painters decide
When
it's
you're done. Yep.
That's so interesting.
And for the record, Topgolf has an amazing restaurant.
Cool. Well, I'm glad, and I'm glad for the painting metaphor. And that's, I would say much physical art is that way.
Mhm.
That we decide. I would also say now with self-publishing, we can do the same thing with our books.
Absolutely.
We push print, and even though it's imperfect as it may be, we still push print, and we can always improve if we want to. And I think that's an important caveat, Jess.
Yeah.
If we want to, right? We could say done, good enough now, right?
Right. So the irony, so I published this book with a publisher, and I was talking to him on the telephone yesterday because I am trying right now. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I am recording my own audiobook currently. And in recording my own audiobook, what it means is that I am reading the very book that I wrote that is telling story. I didn't use a ghostwriter. I wrote it. And it is telling stories. I know the stories. So as reading aloud, I can't change or embellish the stories because what is written is what is copyrighted. However, written word is very different than the spoken word. And while it has now been a year since my book was published, so I actually don't remember what's coming up in a chapter.
Surprise!
So I didn't know I told that story. Wow, I feel totally vulnerable now, right? So I'm reading the chapters and I'm finding errors. I'm finding completely correctly spelled words that autocorrected to the wrong word. I am finding inconsistent use of the Oxford comma. I am finding sentences that don't have verbs. What? Right? And it went through a professional editing process. Now, the humor is the book is called This Book is Absolutely Perfect, right? So it's okay that I have some mistakes, but it is triggering everything in me around how did this book get published? Over 5,000 people have bought this book. It has been used as a book club in like fancy schmancy businesses and associations. Oh my gosh, I found another missing Oxford comma.
Do you think what that tells me though, Jess?
It's literally good enough.
Well, not only is it good enough, right? But nobody cares.
Right.
because they love the content and they love the concept and the
Yeah.
ideas, and they read it correctly, even though you don't. And I would tell you, you can read it however you want because it's a new copyright for your audiobook, by the way.
Yeah.
So you don't
Well,
have to read it letter for letter.
technically that's true, except I already copyrighted the audio in connection with the other one, so I'm late.
All right.
Yeah, but what is now the choice, going back to the painter gets to decide, is that I can make some edits in what will be like a second print of the book that doesn't significantly change the content. And I can also be planning on a second edition.
Gooder enough now? Will that be the title?
Gooder enough someday.
That's awesome.
It'll just be called sorta.
Sorta kind of good. Maybe
Sorta. Yeah. So it is also, I think, important, going back to just generally feeling inadequate, is all the imposter syndrome of me feeling like I had something to say to write a book in the first place, still here. And the fact that the book has mistakes in it and errors, and I should have said this, and why did I say this, and why did I do this, and why is this here? This whole sentence, all gone. This whole paragraph, what's happening? The fact that that is me, I am still oil painting. I'm just not oil painting, because that is what I do. That is the skill set I have, and that's what I love. As I love to create, and I get to dictate when it's good enough, and it'll be done for now. Right? Maybe that'll be the next book. Done for now.
Done for now. It's part 2 of Good Enough Now. Done for now. And then it'll be, well, I'm sort of finished. That'll be because it's going to be a trilogy now, like The Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, right?
Yeah. Today is someday.
That's perfect. Rick Clemens says he's been there, done that. We got Dawn Waits is laughing out loud. So hopefully the cats are enjoying that too, Dawn. And Lisa Demi gives us a thumbs up. So
nothing like a golden thumbs up. And I owe a phone call to Rick.
Yeah. So cool. So all right. That was about inadequacy and about perfection and the lack thereof, because it's just an illusion. So those are beautiful fish faces, by the way, Jessica. I'm loving those.
Thank you. Yeah, nothing but most professional for you.
I know. So Jess, so let's talk some more about imperfection, because I think
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, well, I'm just going to give some example from my life. You can just say, "Yeah, dude, yeah, that's totally you." So, right? But I have had so much imperfection. My first book, Jess, I don't know if you even know this story, but my first book, the day after it came out, the publisher got hacked and their website went dark for 9 months, thus obliterating every book sale that I could have possibly had on that. When I went to reprint it, they messed it up so bad that none of the page numbers matched the table of contents. And I was responsible for proofing the book. And because they sent it to me in pieces and parts, I had no idea that it was wrong. They didn't print any of the white pages that I had in the first edition. So I have a 78-page second edition book that says that it's 96. That's pretty nice. So I could go on, but that's just book number 1. And my point to that is, some days, I got to tell you, I don't even feel like an author. I feel like, wow, dude, you just puked some piece of turd out there that nobody's going to love.
You hit print to a PDF. Woo!
I could have done that at Kinko's, baby, right? So that's the thing. So Jess, I'm curious, how, you're dealing with that kind of now, and the fact you're finding some errors. So like, how do you get past that so that you don't feel like I feel about my book?
Well, it's a lot easier for me to answer this about you and your book than me and my book. So Thank you for framing the question that way. Yes. And I actually had this thought the other day, and I have had this thought many a times. And again, it's advice I give other people. So I'm going to say this and then watch the recording because I need this right now, or you can just chant it back to me. So I have this beautiful backyard. It is on a cliff. That's the ocean. I have 2 beast dogs that I'm sure you'll hear of from some point in time because the mail will come. So while I am outside scooping the poop on trash day, I have 2 choices. One is to look at my feet so that I am only looking for poop. The other one is to look around and see how completely unbelievable it is to me 4 years in that anybody allowed me to buy this house. on the cliff, on the ocean, watching the sunset, watching boats, the tide, flowers and leaves and giant redwoods. I could watch that, or I can look for poop. The truth is, in order to scoop the poop, you have to find the poop. But my backyard is not a poop holder. My backyard is actually a really beautiful place that mostly my dogs just shit on, right? In our life, you can constantly be looking for your mistakes. You can do that. That is how a lot of people live. And I think it is also just as dangerous is that you can just see the pretties. That's great. But you really do need to do both. You know, that I know you've heard me say this, but as a solopreneur, as an entrepreneur, even other people like you and I, we can have deep, deep friendships. But when it really comes down to it, we are making this up. We are building the plane while we are flying the plane. And to do that best, you have to ride both of those realities at the same time. There's like this ego horse that like you're amazing and incredible, and that's when you should write copy. But don't stay on that horse too long, or you become like a sparkly jeans, shiny gray suit guy, right? Blech. And there's this humble humility horse where who am I? What am I doing? I need to be learning. I need to be listening to my audiences. I need to be listening to my coworkers. I need to be constantly figuring out how to improve and get better. And if you spend too much time here, you are only scooping poop. You have to figure out how to do both of those. And if you are going to publish or launch a product or something like that, I think that that's why we need community, is that we need someone to be able to check us and see if we're spending too much time on either end.
Awesome. So we got the poop end and the ego end, and they're slippery. So we got to be careful that we don't stay on one side too long. And that's beautifully said, Jess.
And if it's really, really slippery poop, it can wait till next week's garbage day, and it'll be much easier to pick up.
There you go. So dried poop, much better than liquid poop. Good point, Jess.
Way better. Way better.
Awesome.
So, I knew our conversations would go in strange places, but this might be a topper for us.
It might be. Well, at least in front of other people. So that's nice, right? So yeah. So Dawn says so very well said, and I totally agree with that. I think that's a really interesting way to think about that. And yeah, I'll be calling you to feed that back to you.
Yeah, I know.
You know it will. So hey, let's talk a little bit about stand-up, Jess, because that's always a fun topic, right? I said you're going to make us laugh, right? So, but you probably didn't, but that's okay. I didn't mean it. But no, so talk to me about how stand-up, right? How has that helped you in life? How has that helped you as a trainer? How has that helped you write your book?
Well, I should first say that yes, I came from a funny family. And I think that's always an important place to state because, like, Phil, you're a really funny person too. And when people talk to you about humor, I'm sure they say the same, like, well, I'm just not a funny person. Right? Well, first off, saying that in itself is a funny line. So get over yourself because you can be funny. So yes, I grew up in a funny family that were storytellers. Given. Great. When my father actually passed away, I took a stand-up comedy class when I was living in New York because the final was a 10-minute set at Caroline's in front of famous comedians, and they would be your judge. And I couldn't think of anything more terrifying and out of my element. And I wanted to do something symbolic, I think, to like process grief, but I think also to kind of like pass the hat or whatever the metaphor is for my father's actual passing. So I didn't communicate with him for almost 10 years. He's probably one of the most influential human beings in my life. And I wanted to do something that terrified me because I was still alive. So in taking the class, it was fascinating to start then working the clubs and emceeing shows and traveling around and things like that, and to see how much work goes in to a 3-minute set that looks like someone's making it up. That is a lesson that I am gifted to have had. And I think writing the book, keynoting, developing products, things like that, nothing you do is ever actually by the seat of your pants. And some people somewhere, this goes back to the like extremes we opened the conversation with, but somewhere someone absolutely like by the seat of their pants stumbled into $1 billion empire. And how long is that going to last? You know, and you get to choose flash in the pan, long haul. And if you really are long hauling it, and I have to because I have no employable skill sets, right? Like this is the only thing I can do. So long haul, I have to figure this out. And then now I know how much work can go into a 3-minute phone conversation or a 3-minute conversation with one participant in a hallway that then will shape what it is I choose to do. That's the biggest lesson. That's not a funny lesson, but that's the biggest lesson.
Well, I think that it's funny, not funny, haha, but like funny, unexpected, like, that's really interesting. And I hadn't thought about that. But yeah,
that's what I do, right? Is that I say funny things that aren't funny that make you think.
Yeah, which, you do very well, my friend. You do very well. So let's talk about that, right? So let's kind of go through this whole thought-provoking thing that you do here. So how do you do that? Like, is this just, is it because of your stand-up, do you think? Or is it just because you pay really close attention to what people say? Or are you just really lucky?
Yes.
Of course. Thanks, Jess. Okay, so next question.
I mean, the truth of the matter is that, okay, so full disclosure, and we were talking about this before we hit record. So I'm watching Steve Martin's masterclass right now. And one of the things it's fascinating about one of the things that he's talking about is that the answer to that question is yes, right? Is that I have the experience and the time in the saddle to notice that's a gym, and then you can keep that gym, and then that's the piece that you go off on. Now that gym might have sparkled to me only, or it might come out of someone who's talking with me, or it might be coming out of something I'm listening to. So like I think about, I'm almost always a closing keynoter. So I get to the event the day or two before, and then I like summarize the entire event, make sure everybody's learning the point, know when the next event is, and put my own learning spin on it. So I was recently at the Wound Astronomy Continence Nurses Conference.
Hold on, say that one more time.
I'm mispronouncing it and I can't spell it.
Wound ostomy.
Ostomy Continence Nurses Conference. Okay. So first off, making an assumption, but if you opt in to that level of specialization, you have a sense of humor. Right? Like that's a must. So I'm the closing speaker. I'm in the big keynote room. So prior to me is a series of people reading their scientifically researched papers with slideshows and pictures, mind you, of all kinds of things. And
any pictures of chiplets for the ostomy bag? Any of those?
Nope, no pictures of chiplets, but could have been. But these were like, I am not easily grossed out, and these were a fascinating breakfast choice. That's what I'm going to say. So I have my keynote that I'm going to do as a closing, and I'm watching this information, but I have, going back to Steve Martin, I have the experience to know I can take a line from each of these people and use it as a callback in mine. I just have to make it funny. Okay, great. Well, what are those lines? I don't know. Let's watch and see what surfaces to the top, right? So that's a professional skill. I don't have many. That's one of them. The other one, though, I think is that why not? Like being able to take a risk. When we're trying to develop a sense of humor, 99% of what I think is hysterical, somebody else doesn't. So then the job is to say it and to keep saying it in a way that at least one other person eventually finds it funny. You got two people now. Woohoo! Keep going. You're onto something, right? one of the things that I took from one of the classes I watched today is that the third piece of using humor, especially when talking about controversial topics like I do, is cutting. So when you have enough really solid, good material, you can test new material like I was just talking about. And sometimes that new material, it's just not going to work. There's nothing better than cutting something out so I don't have to sell a weak joke. It's gone. Poof. That's the best part of my job. Is like, oh, that doesn't work anymore. I used to have this super effective, amazing, fabulous joke. Slayed, every single time. And the punchline of the point I was making was about, for the record, this is about how gender expectations have changed over time. A very funny topic. So Clearly. So I'm making a joke about how gender expectations have changed over time by talking about George W. And I describe in detail what George Washington would be wearing. But while George W. was president, people are like, what is she talking about? What is happening? What is going on? Because the whole point is how it's changed over time, right? So I picked 2 white US presidents, but how they expressed power and masculinity and stuff like that changed over time. That's the premise. I can't use that joke anymore. It's so funny to me, but enough of my audiences don't remember George Bush W. being president.
Because there was a second George Bush.
Well, the second one was first. George W.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'm not good at math. I'm sorry.
No, it's totally fine. But that's a great example because people, if I were to make a joke about Bush number 2, people don't even remember Bush number 2. They're certainly not going to remember Bush number 1.
Right.
Too much time has gone by. So to cut a joke that used to work, it's actually freeing because it just doesn't work anymore. Same feeling as when something doesn't work, right? Don't even get me on Sarah Palin. I could say all kinds of things about Sarah Palin, and that doesn't work anymore.
Nope.
So there you go.
There you go. So that's good. So Jess, I promised you that I would not read any crap off your cheat sheet page, but I have to ask this.
And here we go.
Yeah, here we go. So the only question I have is because I see this on here. It says that you've been called the white guy whisperer. What the heck is that?
It's like the highest compliment I think I have ever gotten, and I actually have gotten it more than once even. Ooh. So because I am billed as a diversity speaker, diversity trainer, things like that, inevitably there is some white guy, usually in khaki pants with his arms crossed and his legs kicked out, who has been told to come to my program and has no interest in being there. That is a common sight for me. So I'm originally from Texas. I look different, so people immediately assume I'm going to blame, especially white guys, I'm going to blame them or shame them or something. Excuse me. I'm not going to. That's not how I roll. So it's not my style at all. And truth be told, I am far more liberal than I look. But what I feel like isn't the purpose of that moment on stage or something. So I do what I do, how I do what I do. And inevitably, 3 or 4 white guys will stay towards the end, and they're way far away from me, but still in the room. And they're waiting for the other ones to finish until eventually they realize they all kind of want to say the same thing. So they slowly gravitate towards me. And sometimes they have wildly different politics, wildly different identities or lived experiences. They don't even realize they have me in common. But they gravitate towards me when they're the last people in the room, and they basically say, I had no interest in coming here. I was mandated to be here. This was the best conversation I have ever attended about this. And I feel welcomed into the conversation for the first time. Don't tell anybody. And how do I get more? And they call me the white guy whisperer because of it.
Wow. That's so nice. And I would say that is one of your biggest qualities, is the ability to invite others into a conversation that could be extremely uncomfortable, that helps them feel safe and able to share their opinion even if it may not agree with yours, and
Right.
then to learn something new, which I think is pretty freaking remarkable, Jess.
Yeah, and it's not just someone's opinion. Like, this is who they are and what they believe in, right? And so what a wonderful gift to actually engage with another living human being who has been self-reflective enough to take responsibility for something they actually believe in. I would like more of that in my life. They might believe something that I don't believe, or they might value something that I don't value. I might value something they don't value. I might believe something they don't believe. But it's such a missing piece of our regular in-person conversations to engage with what it is we believe and value. Not what it is we've been told to believe and value, but what it is we actually believe and value. And you can disagree with me, I can disagree with you 100%. Great. But if you can explain to me and I can explain to you why I value and believe what we do, we will actually find out we have more in common.
I think that's a great point. And I think that's a good way to kind of wrap us here. As we're talking about Good Enough Now, Jessica Pettit's awesome book. It's easy to remember. Goodenoughnow.com is her website. You can get it there. She's working on an audiobook, so by the time you listen, you may have that. So, Jess, if you were to say the one place where people could go to maybe continue that conversation, where would you like them to find you at?
Well, I'm 44, so Facebook is probably the best place to engage with me. I was forced to get an Instagram account, so I'm learning how to do that. It sounds like a venereal disease, but I do have one. I also usually offer goodenoughnow.com/freebies, FREEBIES. There's a whole bunch of like handouts and all of those kind of things that are there. I don't like writing in books, but my book is really interactive. So that's also potentially helpful, but I'm happy to connect.
Cool. Cool. Well, Dawn says this has been some of the best time I've spent today. Thanks to both of you. And Jess, I would echo
Thanks.
that. It's been fun to be here, Dawn, and
We all need to get out more often.
that too, right? But we're just glad that everybody has been here and tuned in. We're so grateful for each of you. And Jessica, of course, I love you, and I'm glad you're my friend, and so glad you shared with me today.
You're my twin brother.
We're twins. Yeah. Woo. Goodenoughnow.com, folks. Pick up the book, hang out with Jessica some more, find her on Facebook, and know that right now you're not inadequate. You are good enough now, just as you are. Try to try. Sometimes that's better. So I'm going to try tomorrow. I'm going to do a little Top Golf, whatever that means for you.
Good job.
Do it. Make yourself a little better than yesterday, a little better than right now.